it's David Andrew Weeb, and I'm on my daily walk. And today I wanted to talk about something. It's not complicated by any means. Have you ever felt like there's these long stretches? It could be a couple weeks, it could be a couple months. For whatever reason, they're just really tough to get through. You're not sure why. The things that used to work don't seem to be working. You're trying really hard, but it seems like circumstances and events and people are against you. Have you ever run into situations like that? I think we all have, right? It's pretty much a part of being human. So the question is, what do you do when these challenging periods come up? Do you dig your feet in, try harder, work better, find a way to outsmart the resistance and the energy that seems to be against you? Do you take a break, go play video games, just wait for it to all pass and then get back to your usual activity? Or do you just slug it through because you have deadlines or you have gigs or because you have tour commitments or project deadlines that you need to meet? One thing my mentors always said to me was just stay steady, stay consistent. You're going to start to see results if you keep consistent. It's not about the breakthroughs. It's about the effort and the consistency that led up to those breakthroughs that usually make the difference. It might be a small thing today, but if you were to introduce yourself to 3 people in the music industry, maybe you would get an email back, maybe you wouldn't. But if you did that for a full year, you would definitely make a few friends. So for the most part, my approach has really been to stay steady, stay calm. Yes, things are chaotic. It seems insane. I don't know why. It's just out of my control. Things seem to be happening all at once. Look, I had a night not too long ago. I think it was last week. It ended up being kind of a long, dark night of the soul. It's a bit of a long story, but what ended up happening was I didn't have anywhere to stay. And that's because my debit card wasn't working. I couldn't make online purchases. And to that point, I had made all of my online bookings with Airbnb using that very card. Well, I thought I found a home. So I went and sent an e-transfer to my new landlord, and their email address was flagged. So twice on the same day, that e-transfer got blocked. And I talked it over with my friends and I thought it through, and I just thought, oh my God, rental scams have been going around. If these e-transfers hadn't been marked as fraud, not only could I have lost a lot of money, but they might have cleaned me out after moving all of my stuff into that home. So I was definitely saved from what could have been a very dour, very dire situation. But on the same day, I ended up having to get 2 new debit cards because of the transaction being marked as fraudulent twice. I tried to use this card again to book an Airbnb, and I just couldn't get it to work. So I had to go back and get a 3rd card, and that still wasn't working. So I was left in this odd situation where I thought, what can I do? I guess I'm just going to go camping tonight. I bought some camping gear and headed out to a provincial park. And once I got there, it turns out there is no camping there. I had stayed in hotels pretty much the 4 nights previous, so I thought to myself, okay, I don't really feel like it, but maybe I'll drive back to Hope, or maybe I'll drive back to Harrison Hot Springs and book myself a hotel at one of those places. They didn't require a damage deposit or anything, so it had worked out a couple times, and maybe it'd work out this time. Well, it turns out everything was booked up in Hope and Harrison Hot Springs. Probably a good chunk of hotels all the way up to Chilliwack were booked up. And I was sitting there at Harrison Hot Springs, and it was almost midnight, and I thought, I may not have a place to stay tonight. Now, I'm sure it wouldn't have been my first time sleeping in somewhere strange, and I'm sure you've had to do that at times too. I have memories of sleeping in a police station as a child, not because I'd done something wrong, but because our car broke down and we had nowhere to stay in that town. So while I was pretty sure I wasn't going to get a great sleep in my car, at least it was an option. And the other option was to carry on driving somewhere, maybe walking out and about in nature, just trying to make the most of what was not that great of a situation. But I just happened to be texting back and forth with my mentor right around that time, and he encouraged me once more to go and find a hotel. Go with your debit card and your cash in hand. Someone's got to let you in. Well, I had pretty much given up on Chilliwack at that point, and I didn't think there was going to be anything worthwhile in Abbotsford either. So I ended up driving out all the way to Langley, and I must have tried 4 or 5 places until I finally found a place that would let me make a damage deposit payment and the rental fee with my card. So I was finally able to book a room close to 2 a.m. It was quite the night. And after staying the night at the Travel Lodge in Langley, I got my next 3 nights sorted out because I managed to get a hold of a friend who has a house in Vancouver in a basement that's not being used. And then my parents were planning to come to town that Thursday, so I'd have a place to stay while they were traveling through Maple Ridge as well. But that whole 2-week period was just like, what in the world is going on? My card stops working. I can't book anywhere. I don't have anywhere to stay. And one night I almost had nowhere to stay at all. Here's something that I'm starting to see about these periods where nothing's working. You may still have deadlines to meet. You may still have gigs to play. But I think first and foremost, it's crucial that you go with the flow. Certainly, it's great to have the mental attitude and the mindset and the spirituality to acknowledge that you are, of course, creating your own reality, but there's certain desires that you have, and desires always invite in people and events and circumstances, and that part is sort of without your control. You want to follow your feelings as much as possible, because if you're in a good feeling space, generally what you attract is something that you want. But on the way to getting something that you want, you may encounter things that you don't really want and want to discard for other things. The key part is to discard what you don't want, because so often it's human nature. We just hold on to things that we don't want. But the other key piece of it is we need to ground ourselves in those moments, because we might still have that experience that nothing's working. And it's frustrating and it's difficult. Even if it's not necessarily true, that could be our experience of the situation. So the question is, how do you ground yourself? Do you go out into nature and into the mountains? Do you meditate? Do you go to your favorite room in the house and just spend some quiet time with yourself? If you wanted to go to more of an extreme, maybe you could spend some time contemplating at a monastery. But these are the times to get connected with yourself and ground yourself in any way possible. These long, sluggish, unpredictable periods always come to an end. The energy always lifts. The resistance always goes away. There's always a way forward if we're just willing to be patient. And so the best thing you can do is to not react to the situation. Don't get angry. Don't get frustrated. If it's a genuine reaction to the situation, then let it out, of course. But don't dwell on it. So if you're ever feeling discouraged, just remember this episode, listen to it again if you want, because inevitably we'll all go through these periods in our lives that don't really seem to make sense. But if we're just willing to go with the flow and to be grounded, we're going to go through it with more ease than we might otherwise. Thanks for listening. The opening theme, closing theme, and closing segment ambient music was created by Brian Bob Young. If other music was used in this episode, it's credited in the show notes at musicentrepreneurhq.com. Please leave us a rating and review in iTunes to help us spread the word about the show.